This is the Orthodox Way by Metropolitan Callistus Ware, and we're going to start with Chapter 1, God as Mystery. Unknown and yet well known, that's 2 Corinthians 6:9. And another quote, God cannot be grasped by the mind. If he could be grasped, he wouldn't be God. That's Evagrius of Pontus. I think that's how you would say it. And another quote, one day some of the brethren came to see Abba Antony, and among them was Abba Joseph, wishing to test them. The old man mentioned a text from Scripture, and starting with the youngest, he asked them what it meant. Each explained it as best he could, but to each one the old man said, You have not yet found the answer. Last of all he said to Abba Joseph, And what do you think the text means? He replied, I don't know. When Abba Antony said, Truly Abba Joseph has found then Abba Anthony said, Truly Abba Joseph has found the way, for he said, I do not know. And that's from the Sayings of the Desert Fathers. This is St. Simeon, the new theologian, saying, As a friend talking with his friend, man speaks with God, and drawing near in confidence, he stands before the face of the one who dwells in light unapproachable. And that one was capitalized. Okay. The otherness yet nearness of the eternal. What or who is God? The traveler upon the spiritual way, the further he advances, becomes increasingly conscious of two contrasting facts. Of the otherness and yet the nearness of the eternal. In the first place, he realizes more and more that God is mystery. God is the, quote, the wholly other, invisible, inconceivable, radically transcendent, beyond all words, beyond all understanding. Surely the babe just born, writes the Roman Catholic George Tyrrell, knows as much of the world and its ways as the wisest of us can know of the ways of God, whose sway stretches over heaven and earth and time and eternity. A Christian in the Orthodox tradition will agree with this entirely. As the Greek fathers insisted, a God who is comprehensible is not God. A God, that is to say, whom we claim to understand exhaustively through the resources of our reasoning brains, turns out to be no more than an idol, fashioned in our own image. Such a, quote, God is most emphatically not the true and living God of the Bible and the Church. Man is made in God's image, but the reverse is not true. Yet, in the second place, this God of mystery is at the same time uniquely close to us, filling all things, present everywhere around us and within us. And he is present not merely as an atmosphere or nameless force, but in a personal way. The God who is infinitely beyond our understanding reveals himself to us as person. He calls us each by our name, and we answer him. Between ourselves and the transcendent God, there is a relationship of love, similar in kind to that between each of us and those other human beings dearest to us. We know other humans through our love for them and through theirs for us. So it is also with God. In the words of St. Nicholas Cobbicilius, I don't know. God our King is more affectionate than any friend, more just than any ruler, more loving than any father, more a part of us than our own limbs, more necessary to us than our own heart. These then are the two poles in man's experience of the divine. God is both further from us and nearer to us than anything else. And we find, paradoxically, that these two poles do not cancel one another out. On the contrary, the more we are attracted to one pole, the more vividly we become aware of the other at the same time. Advancing on the way, each finds that God grows ever more intimate and ever more distant, well known and yet unknown, well known to the smallest child, incomprehensible to the most brilliant theologian. God dwells in light unapproachable, yet man stands in his presence with loving confidence and addresses him as friend. God is both endpoint and starting point. He is the host who welcomes us at the conclusion of the journey, yet he is also the companion who walks by our side at every step upon the way. As St. Nicholas Cabasilas puts it, he is both the inn at which we rest for a night and the final end of our journey. Mystery, yet person, let us consider these two aspects in turn. This is really beautiful. God as mystery. That's the next title. Unless we start out with a feeling of awe and astonishment, with what is often called a sense of numinous. Stop. Let me start that over. Unless we start out with a feeling of awe and astonishment, with what is often called a sense of the numinous, we shall make little progress on the way. When Samuel Palmer first visited William Blake, the old man asked him how he approached the work of painting. With fear and trembling, Palmer replied, "Then you'll do." "Oh, then you'll do," said Blake. I don't know what any of that was. The Greek fathers likened man's encounter with God to the experience of someone walking over the mountains in the mist. He takes a step forward and suddenly finds that he is on the edge of a precipice, with no solid ground beneath his foot, but only a bottomless abyss. Or else they use the example of a man standing at night in a darkened room. He opens the shutter over a window, and as he looks out, there is a sudden flash of lightning, causing him to stagger backwards, momentarily blinded. Such is the effect of coming face to face with the living mystery of God. We are assailed by dizziness, all the familiar footholds vanish, and there seems nothing for us to grasp. Our inward eyes are blinded, our normal assumptions shattered. The Fathers also take as symbols of the spiritual way the two Old Testament figures of Abraham and Moses. Abraham, living still in his ancestral home at Ur of the Chaldees, is told by God, "Go out from your country and from your kindred and from your father's house to a land that I will show you." That's in Genesis. Accepting the divine call, he uproots himself from his familiar surroundings and ventures out into the unknown without any clear conception of his final destination. He is simply commanded, "Go out," and in faith he obeys. Moses receives in succession 3 visions of God. First, he sees God in a vision of light at the burning bush. Next, God is revealed to him through mingling light and shadows in the pillar of cloud and fire that accompanies the people of Israel through the desert. And then finally, he meets God in a non-vision, but he speaks with him in the thick darkness at the summit of Mount Sinai. Abraham journeys from his familiar home into an unknown country. Moses progresses from light into darkness. And so it proves to be for each one who follows the spiritual way. We go out from the known to the unknown. We advance from light into darkness. We do not simply proceed from the darkness of ignorance into the light of knowledge, but we go forward from the light of partial knowledge into a greater knowledge, which is so much more profound that it can only be described as the darkness of unknowing. Like Socrates, we begin to realize how little we understand. We see that it is not the task of Christianity to provide easy answers to every question, but to make us progressively aware of a mystery. God is not so much the object of our knowledge as the cause of our wonder. Wow, I'm going to read that again. God is not so much the object of our knowledge, but as the cause of our wonder. Quoting Psalm 8, "O Lord, our Lord, how wonderful is thy name in all the earth." St. Gregory of Nyssa states, "God's name is not known, it is wondered at." This is a really good book. I'm glad I'm reading this. Recognizing that God is incomparably greater than anything we can say or think about him, we find it necessary to refer to him not just through direct statements, but through pictures and images. Our theology is to a large extent symbolic, Yet symbols alone are insufficient to convey the transcendence and the otherness of God. To point at the mysterium tremendum, I just spoke Latin, we need to use negative as well as affirmative statements, saying what God is not rather than what he is. Without this, without this use of the way of Without this use of the way of negation of what is termed the apophatic approach, I might be too dumb to do this. Without this use of the negation of what is termed the apophatic approach, our talk about God becomes gravely misleading. All that we affirm concerning God, however correct, falls short of the living truth. If we say that he is good and just, we must at once add that his goodness or justice are not to be measured by our human standards. I see what he means. If we say that he exists, we must qualify this immediately by adding that he is not one existent object among many, that in his case the word exists bears a unique significance. So the way of affirmation is balanced by the way of negation. As Cardinal Newman puts it, we are continually saying and unsaying to a positive effect. Having made an assertion about God, we must pass beyond it. The statement is not untrue, yet neither it nor any other form of words can contain the fullness of the transcendent God. I see. So the spiritual way proves to be a path of repentance in the most radical sense. Metanoia, the Greek word for repentance, there you go, means literally change of mind. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that word right. But anyway, this word means repentance, but it literally means change of mind. So it's saying the Greek word for repentance literally means change of mind. Okay. In approaching God, we are to change our mind, stripping ourselves of all our habitual ways of thinking. We are to be converted not only in our will, but in our intellect. We need to reverse our interior perspective to stand the pyramid on its head. Yet the thick darkness into which we entered with Moses turns out to be a luminous and dazzling darkness. The apophatic way of unknowing brings us not to emptiness, but to fullness. Our negations are in reality super affirmations. Destructive in outward form, the apophatic approach is affirmative in its final effects. It helps us reach out beyond all statements, positive or negative, beyond all language and all thought, towards an immediate experience of the living God. This is implied indeed by the very word mystery. In the proper religious sense of the term, mystery signifies not only hiddenness, but disclosure. The Greek noun mysterion is linked with the verb maion, meaning to close the eyes or mouth. The candidate for initiation is certain of the pagan mystery religions. The candidate for initiation into certain of the pagan mystery religions, there you go, was first blindfolded and led through a maze of passages. Then suddenly his eyes were uncovered and he saw, displayed all around him, the secret emblems of the cult. So in the Christian context, we do not mean by a mystery merely that which is baffling or mysterious, an enigma or an insoluble problem. A mystery is, on the contrary, something that is revealed for our understanding, but which we never understand exhaustively because it leads into the depth or the darkness of God. The eyes are closed, but they are opened. Thus, in speaking about God as mystery, we are brought to our second pole. God is hidden from us, but he is also revealed to us, revealed as person and as love. The next section, faith in God as person. In the Creed, we do not say, I believe that there is a God. We say, I believe in one God. Between belief that and belief in, there is a crucial distinction. It is possible for me to believe that someone or something exists, and yet for this belief to have no practical effect upon my life. I can open the telephone directory for Wigan and scan the names recorded on its pages, and as I read, I'm prepared to believe that some or even most of these people actually exist. But I know none of them personally. I've never even visited Wigan or Wigan, I don't know. And and so my belief that they exist makes no particular difference to me. When on the other hand, I say to a much loved friend, I believe in you. I'm doing far more than expressing a belief that this person exists. I believe in you turns it means I turn to you, I rely upon you, I put my full trust in you, and I hope in you. And this is what we are saying to God in the Creed. Faith in God, then, is not at all the same as the kind of logical certainty that we attain in Euclidean geometry. God is not the conclusion to a process of reasoning, the solution to a mathematical problem. To believe in God is not to accept the possibility of his existence because it has been proved to us by some theoretical argument, but it is to put our trust in one whom we know and love. Faith is not the supposition that something might be true, but the assurance that someone is there. Whoa, I'm going to read that again. Faith is not the supposition that something might be true, but the assurance that someone is there. That's heavy. Because faith is not logical certainty, but a personal relationship, and because this personal relationship is as yet very incomplete in each of us and needs continually to develop further, it is by no means impossible for faith to coexist with doubt. The two are not mutually exclusive. Perhaps there are some who by God's grace retain throughout their life the faith of a little child, enabling them to accept without question all that they have been taught. For most of those living in the West today, however, such an attitude is simply not possible. We have to make our own the cry, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. That's Mark 9:24, which is a profound prayer. Father tells me to pray that sometimes. I'll say it again. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. For very many of us, this will remain our constant prayer right up to the very gates of death. Yet, yet doubt does not itself signify lack of faith. It may mean the opposite, that our faith is alive and growing. For faith implies not complacency, but taking risks, not shutting ourselves off from the unknown, but advancing boldly to meet it. Here an Orthodox Christian may readily make his own the words of Bishop J.A.T. Robinson. The act of faith is a constant dialogue with doubt. As Thomas Merton rightly says, faith is a principle of questioning and struggle before it becomes a principle of certitude and peace. Faith then signifies a personal relationship with God, a relationship as yet incomplete and faltering, yet nonetheless real. It is to know God not as a theory or an abstract principle, but as a person. To know a person is far more than to know facts about that person. To know a person is essentially to love him or her. There can be no true awareness of other persons without mutual love. We do not have any genuine knowledge of those who hate us. We do not have any genuine knowledge of those whom we hate. Here, then, are the two least misleading ways of speaking about the God who surpasses our understanding. He is personal and he is love. And these are basically two ways of saying the same thing. Our way of entry into the mystery of God is through personal love, and, as the cloud of unknowing says, he may well be loved, but not thought. By love can he be caught and held, but by thinking never. Okay, I'm going to say that again. He may well be loved, but not thought. By love can he be caught and held, but by thinking never. As a dim indication of this personal love prevailing between the believer and the subject of his faith, let us take 3 examples of verbal icons. The first is from the 2nd century account of St. Polycarp's martyrdom. The Roman soldiers had just arrived to arrest the aged Bishop Polycarp and to take him to what he knows must be his death. Here's the story. When he heard that they had arrived, he came down and talked with them. All of them were amazed at his great age and his calmness, and they wondered why the authorities were so anxious to seize an old man like him. At once he gave orders that food and drink should be set before them, as much as they wanted, late though it was. And he asked that. Okay, there's Violet. I know. Okay, late though it was, and he asked them to allow him an hour in which to pray undisturbed. When they agreed, he stood up and prayed, and he was so filled with the grace of God that for 2 hours he could not keep silent. And as they listened, they were filled with amazement, and many of them regretted that they had come to arrest such a holy old man. He remembered by name all whom he had ever met, great and small, celebrated or unknown, and the whole Catholic Church throughout the world. So all-consuming is his love for God and for the whole of mankind and God, that at this moment of crisis, St. Polycarp thinks of others and not of the danger to himself. When the Roman governor tells him to save his life by disowning Christ, he answers, 86 years I have been his servant, and he has done me no wrong. How then can I blaspheme my King who saved me? Second, there is St. Simeon, the new theologian in the 11th century, describing how Christ revealed himself in a vision of light. And here's the story. You shone upon me with brilliant radiance, and, so it seemed, you appeared to me in your wholeness, as with my whole self I gazed openly upon you. And when I said, Master, who are you? Then you were pleased to speak for the first time with me, the prodigal. With what gentleness did you talk to me, as I stood astonished and trembling, as I reflected a little within myself and said, what does this glory and this dazzling brightness mean? How is it that I am chosen to receive such great blessings? I am God, you replied, who became man for your sake, and because you have sought me with your whole heart, see, from this time onwards, you shall be my brother, my fellow heir, and my friend. Third, here is a prayer by 7th century Russian bishop St. Dmitry of Rostov. Come, my light, and illumine my darkness. Come, my life, and revive me from death. Come, my physician, and heal my wounds. Come, flame of divine love, and burn up the thorns of my sins, kindling my heart with the flame of thy love. Come, my King, sit upon the throne of my heart and reign there, for thou alone art my King and my Lord. 3 pointers. God, then, is the one whom we love, our personal friend. We do not need to prove the existence of a personal friend. God, says Olivier Clement, or I don't know, somebody Clement, God is not exterior evidence, but the secret call within us. If we believe in God, it is because we know him directly in our own experience, not because of logical proofs. A distinction, however, needs here to be made between experience and experiences. Direct experience can exist without necessarily being accompanied by specific experiences. There are indeed many who have come to believe There are many indeed who have come to believe in God because of some voice or vision, such as St. Paul received on the road to Damascus. That's in Acts. There are many others, however, who have never undergone particular experiences of this type, but who can yet affirm that present throughout their life as a whole, there is a total experience of the living God, a conviction existing on a level more fundamental than all their doubts. Even though they cannot point to a precise place or moment in the way that St. Augustine, Pascal, or Wesley could, they can claim with confidence, I know God personally. I feel like that's my experience. Well, I mean, in as much as anyway, okay. Such then is the basic evidence of God's existence, and quote-unquote evidence of God's existence, an appeal to direct experience, but not necessarily to experiences. Yet while there can be no logical demonstrations of the divine reality, there are certain pointers. In the world around us, as also within ourselves, there are facts which cry out for an explanation, but which remains inexplicable unless we commit ourselves to belief in a personal God. Three such pointers call for particular mention. First, there's the world around us. What do we see? Much disorder and apparent waste, much tragic despair and seemingly useless suffering. And is that all? Surely not. If there is a problem of evil, there is also a problem of good. Wherever we look, we see not only confusion, but beauty. In snowflake, leaf, or insect, we discover structured patterns of a delicacy and balance that nothing manufactured by human skill can equal. We are not to sentimentalize these things, but we cannot ignore them. How and why have these patterns emerged? If I can pack if I take a pack of cards fresh from the factory with the four suits neatly arranged in sequence, and I begin to shuffle it, then the more it is shuffled, the more the initial pattern disappears, and it's replaced by a meaningless juxtaposition. But in the case of the universe, the opposite has happened. Out of an initial chaos, there have emerged patterns of an ever increasing intricacy and meaning. And among all these patterns, the most intricate and meaningful is man himself. Why should the process that happens to the pack of cards be precisely reversed on the level of the universe? What or who is responsible for this cosmic order and design? Such questions are not unreasonable. It is reason itself which impels me to search for an explanation whenever I discern order and meaning. The corn was orient and immortal wheat, which never should have been reaped, nor was ever sown. What am I reading? What is this? Okay, it's a quote. So it's from something. Okay, we'll try. Okay, the corn was orient and immortal wheat, which never should be reaped, nor was ever sown. I thought it stood from everlasting to everlasting. The dust and stones of the street were as precious as gold. The green trees, when I saw them first through one of the gates, transported and ravished me. Their sweetness and unusual beauty made my heart to leap, and almost mad with ecstasy. They were such strange and wonderful things. This is Thomas Traherne's childhood apprehensions of the beauty of the world can be. Oh, that was what that was. Um, okay, his childhood apprehensions of the beauty of the world can be paralleled by numerous texts from Orthodox sources. Here, for example, are the words of Prince Vladimir Monomakh of Kiev. I'm just sure that I'm screwing up all these people's names, and I'm so sorry. Um, so this is what he says. See how the sky, the sun and moon and stars, the darkness and light, and the earth that is laid upon the waters are ordered. O Lord, by thy providence, see how the different animals and the birds and fishes are adorned through thy loving care. O Lord, this wonder also we admire, how thou hast created man out of the dust, and how varied is the appearance of human faces. Though we should gather together all men throughout the whole world, yet there is none with the same appearance. But each by God's wisdom has his own appearance. Let us also marvel how the birds of the sky go out from their paradise. They do not stay in one country, but go, strong and weak alike, over all countries at God's command, to all forests and fields. Okay, I made it through that. This presence of meaning within the world, as well as confusion, of coherence and beauty, as well as futility, provides us with a first pointer towards God. We find a second pointer within ourselves. Why, distinct from my desire for pleasure and dislike of pain, do I have within myself a feeling of duty and moral obligation, a sense of right and wrong, a conscience? And this conscience does not simply tell me to obey standards taught to me by others, it's personal. Why, furthermore, placed as I am within, okay, why furthermore, placed as I am within time and space, do I find within myself what St. Nicholas Cabasilas calls an infinite thirst, or a thirst for what is infinite? Who am I? What am I? The answer to these questions is far more obvious. Oh, stop. Let me stop talking. The answer to these questions is far from obvious. The boundaries of the human person are extremely wide. Each of us knows very little about his true and deep self. Through our faculties of perception, outward and inward, through our memory, and through the power of the unconscious, we range widely over space. We stretch backward and forward in time, and we reach out beyond space and time into eternity. Within the heart are unfathomable depths, affirm the homilies of St. Macarius. Sorry about these names. It is but a small vessel, and yet dragons and lions are there, and they're poisonous. Okay, so this is what this homily is saying. I'm going to quote it to you now. It is but a small vessel, and yet dragons and lions are there, and they're poisonous creatures, and all the treasures of wickedness. Rough, uneven paths are there, and gaping chasms. There likewise is God. There are the angels, their life and the kingdom, their light and the apostles, the heavenly cities and the treasures of grace. All things are there. In this manner, we have each within our own heart a second pointer. What is the meaning of my conscience? What is the explanation for my sense of the infinite? Within myself, there is something which continually makes me look beyond myself. Within myself, I bear a source of wonder, a source of constant self-transcendence. A third pointer is to be found in my relationships with other human persons. For each of us, perhaps once or twice only in the whole course of our lives, there have been sudden moments of discovery when we have seen disclosed the deepest being and truth of another, and we have experienced his or her inner life as if it were our own. And this encounter with the true personhood of another is, once more, a contact with the transcendent and timeless, with something stronger than death. To say to another with all our heart, I love you, is to say, you will never die. At such moments of personal sharing, we know, not through arguments, but by immediate conviction, that there is life beyond death. So it is that in our relations with others, as in our experience of ourselves, we have moments of transcendence, pointing to something that lies beyond. How are we to be loyal to these moments and to make sense of them? These three pointers in the world around us, in the world within us, and in our interpersonal relationships can serve together as a way of approach, bringing us to the threshold of faith in God. None of these pointers constitutes a logical proof, but what is the alternative? Are we to say that the apparent order in the universe is mere coincidence, that the conscience is simply the result of social conditioning, and that when life on this planet finally becomes extinct, all that humankind has experienced and all our potentialities will be as though they had never existed? Such an answer seems to be not only unsatisfying and inhuman, but also extremely unreasonable. It is fundamental to my character as a human being that I search everywhere for meaningful explanations. I do this with the smaller things in my life. Shall I not do this also with the greater? Belief in God helps me to understand why the world should be as it is, with its beauty as well as its ugliness, why I should be as I am with my nobility as well as my meanness, and why I should love others, affirming their eternal value. Apart from belief in God, I see no other explanation for all this. Faith in God enables me to make sense of things, to see them as a coherent whole in a way that nothing else can do. Faith enables me to make one out of the many. Essence and energies. To indicate the two poles of God's relationship to us, unknown yet well known, hidden yet revealed, the Orthodox tradition draws a the Orthodox tradition draws a distinction between the essence, nature, or inner being of God on the one hand, and his energies, operations, or acts of power on the other. He is outside of all things according to his essence, writes St. Athanasius, but he is in all things through his acts of power. We know the essence through the energy, St. Basil affirms. No one has ever seen the essence of God, but we believe in the essence because we experience the energy. That I understood. Sorry, that was me saying that. By the essence of God is meant his otherness, by the energies, his nearness. I'm getting this. I hope you're getting this. I'm getting this. I understand this now. Because God is a mystery beyond our understanding, we shall never know his essence or inner being, either in this life or in the age to come. If we knew the divine essence, it would follow that we knew God in the same way he knows himself. And this we cannot ever do, since he is creator and we are created. But while God's inner essence is forever beyond our comprehension, his energies, grace, life, and power fill the whole universe and are directly accessible to us. The essence then signifies the radical transcendence of God, the energies, his immanence, and omnipresence. When Orthodox speak of the divine energies, they do not mean by this an emanation from God, an intermediary between God and man, or a thing or gift that God bestows. On the contrary, the energies are God himself in his activity and self-manifestation. When a man knows or participates in the divine energies, he truly knows or participates in God himself, so far as this is possible for a created being. But God is God and we are human, and so while he possesses us, we cannot in the same way possess him. Just as it would be wrong to think of the energies as a thing bestowed on us by God, so it would be equally misleading to regard the energies as a part of God. The Godhead is simple and The Godhead is simple and indivisible and has no parts. The essence signifies the whole God as he is in himself. The energies signify the whole God as he is in action. God in his entirety is completely present in each of his divine energies. Thus, the essence energies distinction is a way of stating simultaneously that the whole God is inaccessible and that the whole God is his outgoing love and that the whole God in his outgoing love has rendered himself accessible to man. By virtue of this distinction between the divine essence and the divine energies, we are able to affirm the possibility of a direct or mystical union between man and God, what the Greek fathers term the theosis of man, his deification. But at the same time, we exclude any pantheistic identification between the two, for man participates in the energies of God, not in the essence. There is union, but not fusion or confusion. Although one with the divine, man still remains man. He is not swallowed up or annihilated, but between him and God there continues always to exist an I-thou relationship of person to person. Such then is our God, unknowable in his essence, yet known in his energies, beyond and above all that we can think or express, yet closer to us than we know our own heart. Yet closer to us than our own heart. There you go. Through the apophatic way, we smash in pieces all the idols or mental images that we form for him. For we know that all are unworthy of his surpassing greatness. Yet at the same time, through our prayer and through our active service in the world, we discover at every moment his divine energies, his immediate presence in each person and each thing. Daily, hourly, we touch him. We are, as Francis Thompson said, in no strange land. All around us is the many splendored thing. Jacob's ladder is pitched between heaven and Charing Cross. I don't know what that word is. Charing Cross? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll put it on the thing so you can see it. I don't know what that is. Okay. O world invisible, we view thee. O world intangible, we touch thee. O world unknowable, we know thee. Inapprehensible, we clutch thee. In the words of John Scotus, somebody, every visible or invisible creature is a theophany or appearance of God. The Christian is the one who, wherever he looks, sees God everywhere and rejoices in him. Not without reason did the early Christians attribute to Christ this saying, life the stone. No, stop. It's going to be something that makes sense, apparently. Okay, not without reason did early Christians attribute to Christ this saying, lift the stone and you will find me. Cut the wood in two and there am I. Okay, and so I